Hi guys, it's Blackie.
And Bear.
And welcome to Old Wayz number 46.
46.
Wow, how time flies. Well, it is middle of February, well not quite middle of February now, and spring's right around the corner for us. So, what do you got planned for the spring? What you got to do on that?
Well, something that I've wanted to do for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to build a rabbit hutch.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to redo my chicken yard,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully have a more successful garden than I have in the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, we're at the range today. That's that loud, obnoxious noise that you hear in the background.
The sound of freedom back there? It's
Absolutely.
okay.
Those are freedom seeds doing their job.
Well now, what kind of chickens are you looking for?
Yes.
I know that, but have you got a type that you prefer? Are you looking for meat hens or egg hens?
Both. I have found a breed called the Red Star from McMurtry Hatchery.
Mm-hmm.
And they are supposed to be ideal meat chickens and egg producers. So I'm going to do that. I have to be kind of careful because Mrs. Bear is got chickens and they produce a lot of eggs.
Gotcha. In the long past, I haven't done any chickens or stuff like that. I always did little gardens, but we had family members that had various different breeds of chicken that they would mix them sometimes because they wanted these because they were meat chicken.
Yeah. And
then they wanted these because they were better layers and worked out pretty good. I just never got into it. You know, I understand the idea of it, but running a bunny hutch for rabbits or something, I just never, I'd always prefer to hunt and fish as opposed to raise game, but I can see it.
well, there are these circumstances that occur where you're out of season
Yeah.
and the larder's getting a little bit thin, and you can go out there to the bunny hutch and
Mm-hmm.
pull you 3 or 4 out.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a challenge regulating the breeding. I've got to separate the buck from the two doe. I'm going to get 2 does, which is the female, and I've got to keep them separated or I'll be up to my armpits and little rabbits. I've got to control that aspect of it, which is the only challenge, the only real serious challenge that I see.
Well, now, I am in no way condoning this, and I am confident that there is some sort of law against it, just because. But I know of someone in the past that what they did with that was they had their 20-something bunnies in this big thing they had, and they rotated them. And so whenever they would get into a surplus of bunnies, they would turn the bunny loose on their land to repopulate the rabbits on their land. And they would just put a little bit of feed out for a week or 2, and that was all they had to do. Well, it did 3 things. One, they would breed, and then those that were coming up would be truly wild bunnies.
Yeah.
2, it also fattened up everything around there that they wanted to shoot and eat anyway, because they would eat bunnies and etc. So it also attracted other game to them, and plus he was a trapper, and so he liked foxes and coyotes and other things on his land.
Yeah.
So he'd turn loose a couple of dumb bunnies every so often, and so he kept his bunny larder where he wanted. He had wild bunnies everywhere. He was feeding the local economy, so to speak, and at the same time it was providing him some financial support of attracting all the predators for the bunnies. And he was the one that taught me you can eat coyote.
Yeah.
It tastes
You
like
can't eat the liver.
Cannot eat the liver. You can't eat canine liver.
You
It's
cannot.
poisonous. But everything else you can eat, and he tastes like steak. I mean, he's good. So hey, it was a win-win for him.
That sounds like a survival old ways.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, in really, really tough time, you'd have to come up with a way of keeping a meat source around there that's not going to be easily noticed. Wait for the helicopter to go by.
That's the thing. Is deer season and rabbit season and squirrel season, they all run together. And you have those starvation months of April, May, June, and July, and August.
No, that's when we fished.
Well, true.
I mean, we would like we've talked about in the past. It's how we kept our freezers rotating. Was you ate what was in season, and then you ate out of your freezer what was not in season. And so during the spring, when it was easy to fish, all you had to do was throw a line in the general direction you were catching fish. You would fill up the freezers of fish. You'd eat fish. When you got sick eating fish, that's when you went to pulling rabbits and squirrels and deer out of the freezer. About the time you were running out of rabbits and squirrels and deer, rabbit, squirrels, and deer season was back around. And now it's too cold and you ain't got time to fish because you're hunting, but you had fish in the freezer.
Yeah.
For a once a week fish fry or something.
Yeah, and we've talked about how to store fish. In our humble opinion, the best way to do it is if you can find an old paper milk carton, load it up with your fish, put you some water in it and freeze it.
Yeah, just turn it into a solid block
That's
of ice.
it.
But now, along that, all right, now back to what types of things you want to grow in the garden this time?
Well, I've been thinking that I might try I've done tomatoes, I've done corn, I've done squash. I was thinking more in like cabbage. Of course, this is the time of the year to have it in. I should already have it in the ground, but I don't. The leafies. Maybe some root like turnip and carrot.
I saw a guy who I will not mention because he's doing stealth stuff and being sneaky stuff, but he was talking about how growing potatoes.
Yeah.
He takes and he digs in the ground, not deep, but he makes the thing along an edge of a fence or something like that. He puts his proper soil down, he then plants his potatoes, and then he throws hay over the top of it and just ignores it. Well, you don't even know it's there. And he said, that's the point. You won't know it until time to dig them up. But at the same time, nobody can steal them because they don't know they're there. They think that that's where you're parking your tractor at, and that's that long out wall over there. So he plants potatoes. And so I thought about doing some potatoes. I've always done, the last several years I've done tomatoes because we like tomato sandwiches and stuff like that. Last year I grew romaine lettuce. That did really good. We got a bunch of salads off of that.
Well, now 2 years ago, you grew tomatoes 10 months out of the year.
I found this particular little cherry tomato that we really, really like. It gets about as big as it's going to get. It's going to be like a walnut. But it was just hanging like grapes. And I kept that thing going. It finally produced its last cluster of 4 of them the week of Christmas.
I remember.
Yeah, I mean, I had about 1st of December, I had moved it indoors at night, and I would bring it out in full sun during the day, and it's the last clusters it had when it finally gave up the ghost was week of Christmas. So yeah, I got a lot of tomatoes out of that, and this year I'm gonna, when income tax money comes in, get a new deep freeze, and we're going to start making tomato sauces and stuff like that, and putting up tomatoes and stuff.
One thing on my wish list is harvest the dehydrator,
Yeah.
the freeze dryer.
Yes.
I want one of those, and if I'm able to get it, then we're going to be doing some freeze drying how-tos. There are some foods that you can't freeze dry. There's just no way to do it. But
Like eggs.
you can freeze dry an egg.
That's going to be a challenge for me, you know.
No, you really can. Just take it and put it, crack them into a bowl, whip them up,
Mm-hmm.
and then just pour it into your pan, and it freeze dries. Bing, bang, boom.
Well, I had,
Through the dark arts.
we put up eggs one year when I was making a bar with somebody that had chickens. These ladies were fertile. They were pumping out eggs like crazy. And I was getting these great big old, what we used to call grease jars. Probably like it's a gallon jar. And I was putting the eggs in it. And they were stored for 3-4 months, like that.
You can keep them in the shell and put them in a like a glass jar, and take pickling lime.
Yeah.
And,
Lime water is what we use.
Yeah, it's called isinglass or something.
Mm-hmm.
But those eggs in that jar will keep for about 1.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Right on the counter. You don't even have to refrigerate them, and you don't do it with store-bought eggs.
No. Fresh eggs only.
Yeah, fresh eggs right out of the chicken only.
You know, that's what we did. We kept one of those. I kept a full year, and we checked them. They were perfectly fine. So that was one way to preserve it. Didn't require refrigeration.
Right.
For hard times, like you're saying, whenever, you know, we are right now, it being February, it's time for sucker fishing. I haven't sucker fished in 30 years, but it's a type of seagoing fish that comes up into our creeks and streams in February to breed. No, it ain't mullet. It's got it looks like a plecostomus, that thing you see that's an algae eater. It's got a nose that goes down. They call them red horse. The big ones are called red horse. And I have fished on the bank at elbow and caught them. You take a long shank hook, like crickets, and you put whole kernel corn on it, right out of a can of, like, you know, Green Giant. You put about 5 or 6 on there and throw it out there with a big weight so it don't roll. And it's a seagoing fish. I started catching them in the 70s with my step granddaddy over here at Elba. We'd go to the river and fish for it. And it's always in January and February. And it's a really good tasting fish. The problem with it is they're just a bean and 2 bones. It's a real hair fine bone. And so what we'd do is you'd fillet them, you'd pull out every bone you could see, and then you'd put them in a blender and just pulse them and make fish cakes out of them like you make salmon cakes.
Yeah, Daddy always used to say you could take them and fry them crispy.
Yeah.
And the bones would crisp up and you'd never even notice them.
It is not truly a bone. It's more like gristle.
Yeah.
And so, but I took one time and I put it on an ant mound. I mean, it looked like a comb. It looked like the whiskers on a cat, all these little bitty bones. But it's not really it is a bone, but it's such a thin, flexible bone. But when you cook it, but if you'll chop it up and make a fish cake out of it, mix it with a little cornmeal and an egg and make fish cakes out of it. Do people even eat salmon cakes and fish cakes like that anymore?
We do it in my house.
Well, I hadn't heard anybody.
It's been a while.
I haven't done it in a couple of years, but I just wonder if people still do that anymore. It was,
Yeah.
a way to eat fish that you didn't particularly care for that fish is you spice up some cornmeal with some peppers and stuff and roll the fish in that and make a fish cake out of it. And it was meat, it was food, and you didn't have to taste it so much.
Well, that's like, I mentioned mullet.
Yeah.
I do not like mullet. Okay, my my brother, my mother, my niece, my nephew, my sister-in-law, they all love it.
Mm-hmm.
to me, it just is a handful of mud.
Yeah.
And I've never had a mullet cooked any way that I enjoyed it, which is sad because I understand that it's a very, very nice fish.
Well, for years that was the thing. You'd go down there, Fort Walton Beach, Choctawhatchee Bay and stuff, and them boats would go. You'd see them. They wouldn't be 100 foot off the shore in those flats with nets, and they'd catch mullet and bring them back up there and sell them right out of the net for cheap. And there were down here when we were kids. That's one of the fish fry fishes. Was somebody'd be sent down there and come back with a wash tub full of fish.
Yeah. And they practically gave the stuff away.
Oh, it's dirt cheap.
It was a good buy.
Oh yeah.
But I've never found mullet cooked any particular way that I really enjoyed it. I love bass. I love brim. I love catfish, salmon, the whole 9 yards. Just don't like mullet. Sorry.
Well, I like fish. I kind of got burned down on it because we ate so much of it.
Yeah.
And when me and my wife got together, and I was doing some fishing still back then. And I would go get stuff for us to do fish fries and stuff like that. And she wanted it more than I did. You know, I can really understand, you know, listen to my grandmother and granddaddy and a lot of the great uncles and stuff talking about, you know, because when I found out that dandelions were edible when I was a small child, and I wanted to try to learn how to cook and eat dandelion, and you'd have thought I was telling my grandmother I wanted to eat nuclear waste. And like, no, we ain't going to talk about that. And then I found out from her sister, it's like, child, it's because we ate so much of that. That's all we had a lot of time. That nobody wants to eat that anymore because we ate so much of it. Well, I ate so much boiled meat and I ate so much fish that I just don't want it that much.
Well, you and I are old enough to remember when a lot of houses, particularly on the edge of town and out in the country, had hogs in the backyard.
Oh yeah.
And you know, that was hard time meat.
Yeah.
You couldn't afford beef.
You fed them the slop and the scraps and everything until there wasn't nothing else, then you cooked them.
Yeah. Then you get one out and clean it, kill it and clean it, and put it in the smokehouse and smoke it. But I say that to say this: when our parents were young and our grandparents were raising them, there were not very many deer in this area.
We'd eat them all.
Yeah, during the Depression and World War I, that era, and then even before World War I, there was no real hunting season. You just saw deer killed, same, ate supper.
And there was a lot of really hatred of it. My
Yeah,
granddaddy
they'd eat
talked
up
about
crops.
the first time he ever saw a deer was his granddaddy had found a deer track on the side of their field. And the whole family followed out en masse to run that thing down and kill it.
It was eating their crop.
It was eating their crop. And it was not what you think about, oh great, a deer. It was, that thing's eating our crop. And so it was run it down and kill it. And that's what we were poor down here. People were eating anything they'd get a hold of. And that's one of the reasons that they had to repopulate down here starting in the 1950s, bringing deer in.
Yeah. But now we have a very well managed
Very virulent.
Yeah, we have a very well managed herd.
Last time I looked, they said there's about like 4 million deer in Alabama.
That's roughly the size of the state, of the population of the state.
Yeah, it's one of them things where they figure there's like 2 deer per square mile. So we got plenty of deer.
But you know, back in the day, that was something that just wasn't available.
But even, I mean, I had somebody talking to me last year that he said, look, I can't hunt because of this or that. He said, I really am trying to do this. And I said, are you squeamish? He said, no, not really. I said, okay, here's what you do. Every morning, what you need to do is you need to contact the local law enforcement, the county sheriff, and the state troopers. Give them a business card and tell them, if you got a deer down, call me. I'll come get it. And when somebody hits a deer and it's 35 degrees and he gets hit in the head, go get the deer. You know, it's been laying on the ground for 2 hours. It's okay to clean it.
Yeah.
You know, you can pick up roadkill. You damn right I picked up roadkill. We was told. I remember coming back from Dothan on a job one day, and this deer ran out about a half mile up ahead of me, and this truck hit her in the head. Spun her around in the ditch. She was still kicking whenever I was loading her in the back of the dang truck. She was dead, but you know, she had that little twitch going on. I brought her home and dropped her off, and whenever I got back to work, he said, "Why are you so late?" And I told him what I did, and he said, "Can I get a tenderloin out of that?" "Yes, sir. I'll bring you a tenderloin." So, you know, if you ain't squeamish, if it ain't tore up, and even if it is, you know, oh my God, the back end is tore up. Is the front still good? I can salvage this, salvage that, and it's amazing what you can do.
Oh yeah, half a deer's better than no deer.
Half a deer's better than no deer, and as long as, you know, it's not gone bad, it hadn't had time to. I mean, come on, is that redneck? Yes, that sure is, but how hungry are your kids? You know, I've done it. I got Davy Hobbs his first skunk hat because it was a run over skunk on the way to Columbus, Georgia. We were doing living history, and he wanted one of them skunk felt hat. And I said, well, if I see a skunk, I'll get it. And I was on the way to Columbus, and there was a fresh kill, and it hadn't sprayed. So it didn't smell bad, and I picked it up. It was still warm. It got hit just a few minutes before, and I skinned that thing right quick. I got 2 hours later, I came back down here, and I said, "There's your hat." You know, he went and made a hat out of that.
I remember that hat.
He did a good job.
I remember that hat.
It was really well done. So yeah, but back to one of the things that I'm wanting to do this year is, last year I did lettuce, I did forest tomatoes, I also did some little snap peas. It didn't work out that well. I didn't understand the soil correctly. I got to change that. This year I think I'm going to start, I'm going to go along the edge of my tree line where I get sun, and I'm going to take a 5-gallon bucket, and I'm going to take the bottom out of it. And I'm going to put about 1/3 of that bucket in the ground and then dig down about that deep, make a good soil base, bring it all the way up. And I think I'm going to plant like a blueberry bush or something in that. So it's not a pick it up, move it bucket, but it's a little bit of a raised. I can defend it better. The soil is kind of weak there, so I'll make a good soil base for it.
Yeah.
And plant that, and I won't get much out of it for probably 2 years. When I do, I'll start getting blueberries out of it. And my wife loves blueberries.
Well, they're good antioxidant.
Yeah, so why
They're
not
good
plant
for
like
what
3
ails
of them?
Yeah.
You know, I want to plant a couple
yours,
of fruits.
a hers, and a hers.
Yep, hers. But we got a fig tree, but it's not in a good place anymore. When it was put there when the house was built, it was wide open, but now the big oaks have shaded it where it's not getting enough sun. So I think I'm going to graft it and take the grass out in the sunny area of the yard and see if I can plant it and get that to going again. Now those are long term. That's not going to be a seasonal thing, but I'm planting it now, and 3 years from now, I'll start seeing the stuff off of it. 5 years from now, I should start getting really good out of it. But I'm going to do my tomatoes different. I saw a thing I was telling Bear about, that what this guy had done was, he was bucket gardening. And what he did was, you had the buckets this way, and then behind it, he took that 4-inch square farm cloth. It's a fencing that's like got 4-inch squares to it. And he made a curve out of it. So it's like a half of an archway. Okay? It's angled so that the sun is coming here and it's to the back. So that becomes his place to hook the trellis for your tomatoes. And then as the tomatoes produce fruit, he guides the fruit to hang on the inside, go through there and hang on the inside. So when you came around to the inside, it was like hanging fruit on the inside. There's all his tomatoes hanging on the inside. That frees up the plant to go sideways instead of being round, and he can make the plant, instead of being round, flare it out like a fan to get maximum sun on it, and the fruit's on the inside, so it's very easy to harvest. So I think I'm going to try that this year. getting buzzed, calls?
It's an Amber Alert.
Oh, okay. We'll check that out. But anyway, we also going to be doing a video in a week or so where we're going to be doing the chicken. We're getting a
Yes.
big box of chicken thighs, and we're going to walk you through how we take it and bag it up to put it in the freezer. So we're buying in bulk. We're getting 48 pounds of chicken.
We've already done one case for practice.
Yeah, practice just to make sure.
Just to make sure.
And we use a sealer mill and put them into it. They're small thighs. Before we put, I think, 6 in them. I think we ought to do 8 this time, which is a little bit better than a crock pot. But other than that, that provides us with plenty of chicken.
Oh, I've also been looking at some other channels, and I have found a couple of ladies overseas who will take like quart jars, and they will do complete meals in their quart jars, and then water bath them. They don't pressure them, they water bath them. And I'm trying to figure out how to do a little bit of that here on the channel too. I find that very intriguing because these complete meals will last in excess of a year.
Now, I've seen what you're talking about. My question is, that is cooked.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just cooked inside the jar, and therefore it's like modern things. They actually can it, then they cook it. What we're buying in the store anyway.
Yeah. Well, a lot of what we get is pre-cooked. If you'll read the wrappers, a lot of what you buy is already cooked, and you're just cooking it again.
Just eating it up, really.
Yeah. But these particular ladies, what they do is, like if they're doing beans, they will soak the beans and parboil them for 5 minutes or so, and then drain them off, and then put a layer of beans in the jar, and they'll put in some meat like beef or pork or something, or some sausage, and then they'll put in a layer of onions and a layer of carrots and a layer of beans until they fill the jar up, and then they put it into water, boiling water, for about 3 hours. So what you've got is you're bringing the contents of the jar up to 212 degrees, and you're holding it there, or 100 degrees centigrade for you people on the metric system, and they're holding it there for 3 hours. So it's cooked.
It's cooked, and it's
pasteurized.
It's killed any bacteria in there.
Yeah, and you're good to go. All you got to do is just warm it up and serve it. I'm hoping to be doing, I've got a lot of jars saved up, and I hope to be doing that, of course, with Blackie, over the next year.
Well, that would actually be very beneficial because, like, for example, us getting chicken. You've come into this big hunk of meat, deer meat, whatever, and you don't have the storage space. If you could water bath it and turn it into a meal, and then be able to put that on a shelf and not have to refrigerate it, and then when it comes time to actually eat it, all you got to do is just scoop it all out of the jar and put it in one pot and heat it on up, you know, and that would be a really good way to store it. Where it's not just, okay, we got chicken, nothing but chicken, but we got chicken. It'd be like a meal.
Go out in the yard and get dandelion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do dandelions or whatever. But the thing about it is, you know, that way you can do a bulk buy of rice, a bulk buy of whatever, and carrots, peas, whatever, and just combine them into these multiple meals, and have something you can barter too. You know, because if you do it and you do these with chicken and I do it with beef, we could swap some.
Sure.
And then this person over here, he's got access to pork. You know, we could work it out.
You know, it's like I was saying in a previous old ways, whenever I find pork loin on sale, I'll go and I'll buy one, and I'll get my butcher to cut it up into steaks about an inch thick. And then I vacuum seal them and put them in the freezer. Works wonderfully.
There's so many things you can do with that.
Sure.
It's
Sure.
always easier to dice it up smaller. It's harder to make it bigger and thicker.
Yeah. I had, well, a couple of years ago, gosh, actually it's been about 4 years ago now, I had gone in and I had done some ground beef and I had done some sausage and things like that, a pressure canned them. And my youngest son would come in from school, and I had a lot of it in pint jars. He would come in and grab a spoon and eat it straight out of the pint jar for a snack.
Yep.
I had to watch him real close.
Mm-hmm. They'll eat your entire supply if you're not careful.
Of course, now he's 6.5 feet tall and weighs about 300.5 pounds.
And is in college.
And he's in college.
And they don't feed you like that in college, boy. I'm sorry.
No, he's height and weight wise, he's a man's man.
I remember cleaning out my freezer when me and Oak got married. I had a chest freezer that I couldn't bring. There was no place for it. And I had all this fish and stuff in there and didn't have anybody to give it to, so I went over to college and walked in the student center and I said, who here knows how to cook fish? A bunch of hands went up. I said, come on out the truck. And I went handing out packages of frozen fish and feed the starving college students, you know, because they were subsisting on ramen and stuff trying to get through because they didn't have money, but by God, they knew how to cook fish, so yeah. Well, anyway, brother, the next one we'll do will be on bagging up chicken, and hopefully that'll be coming up next week. Anything else you want to add?
No, I think that's a pretty good place to stop.
Sorry for the, wait a minute. But anyway, till next time, anything else you want to add, brother?
The helicopter that just flew over, you never realize how much it means to you until you live in a spot where they don't fly over.
Yeah, we've lived here our life and you hear it all the time. It's like car traffic does. We just ignore it. So sorry if it's bothering. Well, till next time, guys, I'm Blackie.
And Bear.
Wishing you safe journeys. Have a great day, guys.